Hi, I'm Jim Hargrove, Enterprise Business Consultant with Shamrock Foods. I want to talk to you today about the hospitality industry in terms of this COVID-19 that we're all dealing with, kind of where we've been, where we are, and then I really want to strategize with you on moving forward and moving forward in a successful kind of way. And what we're kind of talking about is the changing of the narrative. Service, employee culture, marketing probably changed forever because of what we've all experienced with the pandemic. And I would say that if you're watching this presentation right now, I consider you to be a revolutionary of sorts, if you will. You've dug in and found ways to make it work in ways we never dreamed we would have to do. So you're to be congratulated for that. I talk with a lot of owner-operators and restaurant folks that kind of feel like they're on an island. You're not on an island. This is happening to everyone. And the tenacity and the creativity that I see out there is really very inspiring. So you've come this far. Let's talk about how to make it all the way. We've got a mantra around here that we talk about, make it to May. And what that is a call to action for restaurant owner-operators, chefs, GMs, all those folks to have the right mindset of keeping one eye focused keenly on today's business, doing things we've never had to do before, which I know you're doing because you've made it this far, but also keeping one eye on the horizon. We have to be more horizontal thinking than ever. 2 weeks out, 2 months out, 6 months out, because things are changing so fast. And when we get to the other side of this COVID-19 mess, our industry is going to look different. So it's almost like a crystal ball approach. We'll talk about that a little bit today. It also it speaks to make it to May, not as a finish line, but as a combined finish and start line. And I say that because near as we can tell from the research we've done, when we get to May, we're going to have about half of our nation is going to be inoculated against the virus. That's not going to get that herd immunity we've been hearing so much about, but it will do one thing that we feel pretty good about, and that is the return of consumer confidence. And the consumer confidence means your restaurant's going to start to look and act and feel like it did before all this started. So again, it's a start line and a finish line. So understanding that we have a ways to go, let's figure out how we're going to get there. Fiscally sound, a strong staff in place, super strong culture, really, really good reputation, and you're going to be set up for success to be out ahead of your competition. So how do we do that now? We do that by understanding this new relationship between hospitality and safety. And they're more entwined now than ever, and they'll probably never get completely unentwined for years because of this. Think of it this way. Think 4 months back, 6 months back, 8 months back in terms of safety. Safety is rigid. Hospitality is warm and engaging. So where are you now with those two silos? Have they begun to combine together? Because if they haven't, they need to. We're going to talk about that a little bit. If you can combine them both, you're going to find yourself compliant with all these regulations, but also from a critical standpoint, you're going to be engaged with your customers so they feel compelled to continue to come in and use your restaurant during the pandemic, and they're going to be more loyal to you when all this is more behind us. So, sanitation as hospitality. Safety should not be a hammer. Safety should be a warm blanket. See the difference there? We think back on what it looked like before the pandemic when we didn't have to tell the story of safety and sanitation, and now we have to tell that story in our restaurants. So how do we do that? The first piece, the frontline piece, the employee, the training of the staff, making sure they understand sanitation as hospitality and how the two are intertwined. So thinking back 6 months ago, we were teaching ourselves and our employees and our customers how to use restaurants. Everything was brand new. So things aren't quite as new as they used to be. We don't have to educate our customers as much as we used to have to do in terms of ongoing sanitation, a QSR code instead of a menu maybe, or an online touchless payment perhaps. So by and large, our customers don't need that training anymore, that teaching anymore, just reminding them how you are keeping them safe, safety and hospitality, making sure they understand what you are doing for them and with them in order to make sure that the hospitality piece is not lost. So let's talk about employee culture, employee engagement, employee morale, a really key piece of maintaining hospitality and safety in the coronavirus age. So we've all had, before the pandemic, we've all had mission statements, vision statements, value statements. They should have changed by now because everything else has changed around us. So an employee culture that is engaged and controls turnover, that can be accessed through the beginnings of a value statement. I put something together for you today, just real simple, just to get you start thinking about your value statement, how it might be different now in the coronavirus age. 3 parts to this value statement. 1, live it. Employees and ownership will hold each other accountable for sanitation, food safety, and cleanliness standards. We will live it or we won't be in it. 2, learn it. Employees will learn and demonstrate excellent knowledge of our sanitation, food handling, and cleanliness standards in order to complete training. 3, and this is the top-down piece, this is the leadership piece coming from you, expect it. Management and ownership will always maintain an open-door policy regarding our sanitation policies and will encourage open dialogue on them. We take these issues seriously. You will be heard. That's just one example of a value statement that may have changed during the pandemic. And that's going to dictate how you engage with your customers and train your employees. Give that some thought. Mission statement. Again, we've all had mission statements in our businesses, but now maybe it's time in our industry to have a sanitation mission statement, something that's never existed before. Here's an example for you to start thinking about. Our restaurant will relentlessly pursue best-in-class sanitation procedures to responsibly and conscientiously protect our customers and employees while simultaneously providing best-in-class service and hospitality. We will achieve this through training and best possible compliance with virus protections. Our most pressing and present goal will be to protect our guests and employees. Sanitation mission statement. If it's alive in your restaurant, you're going to enhance your hospitality and sanitation together. Employee morale. We've been in this for a little while now. I know I don't have to tell you that. It can be discouraging sometimes, getting up and getting into the restaurant every single day. So that's important because that can have a negative effect on hospitality and the ability for the customers to engage. I kind of look at it like this. There's some very important people in our country that get a lot of recognition for being frontline workers, really important people, doctors, nurses, first responders, teachers. You don't really hear too much about hospitality workers, and they are frontline workers. So if they're not going to get that kind of recognition that those deserving folks do, let's make sure we're recognizing them, because that's employee morale. Because they're coming in and being frontline workers every day, and people are just like, well, yeah, you work in a restaurant, you have to come take care of me. It's more than that. So the morale needs to be worked on. And we do that by standing side by side with our employees, our staff members, like, thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging in this place with me. We're going to get through this together. I recommend communication, maybe once a week. You and leaders of your team, let's say, can find 5 minutes for a masked conversation with your employees. How are you doing? How are you feeling? What are we doing well? What could we be doing better? Everyone likes to be heard, but especially now in this day and age, people need to be heard. Also, in terms of the people piece, the employee piece, I see the best in class that I work with out there that are really watching the employee pool. It's very challenging. We're having trouble getting and keeping people. It's always been tough, and it's tough now for different reasons. But they're working hard to find the best possible people that have been laid off or may be laid off, and they're building their teams now, paying as much as they possibly can, given the circumstances, to build these great teams. And they have great morale and great employee culture to keep them there. Again, make it to May. We're going to get into next year, and they're going to have the best possible team. You do that, and you're going to be able to outcompete all the other folks that you're up against. So concentrate on your employee culture through the fall, through the winter, through the spring, and you're going to come out of the gate running faster than the competition. Employee turnover, that's always, we just kind of touched on that. That's bad for morale, that's bad for food quality, that's bad for service. So we want to make sure we're looking at that employee turnover and doing our best to control that in this day and age. And if we're going to have this idea of safety and hospitality combined as one, start to tell that story at recruitment. Wherever you do your recruitment, if it's a third-party platform, tell the story. Here's the job, here's the hours, here's what we're about in terms of safety and hospitality. Orientation, you bring up the mission statement, value statement, things that we've been talking about already. And then, of course, training. We're going to emphasize during training safety as hospitality. And then if we need help, some of these restaurants with diffusing the extremes, every once in a while this happens in restaurants in terms of people getting with their feathers ruffled about wearing a mask or socially distancing or large parties or whatever. We need to make sure that the staff understands how to diffuse those extremes. If you don't have those tools, we do. Ask Shamrock and we can help you out with that. So from the employee piece onto the customer piece, engagement and market Our goal should be to get the warmth of our hospitality back to just as exactly how it was before the pandemic hit. And so what we can do is think in terms of how did we get people into our restaurants prior to the pandemic? The holy trinity, the basic three: food, service, and atmosphere. If you don't have those three, you're not in the game anyway. So you have to have food, service, and atmosphere. So if I'm making a restaurant decision on a Friday afternoon, grab my phone, I think about what I want to eat, I start looking around. I find your brand, and I look at the menu, and then I look up some reviews, and then I look at some photos. That tells me a lot about food, service, and atmosphere for your brand. I go in. Now's your chance to engage with me with hospitality and engage me with your brand. I experience great food, great service, great atmosphere, and all those little nuances, those subtleties that make me really have this intangible sense of well-being as I'm leaving the restaurant. That's hospitality. That's what you just created. That's the fourth leg that not everybody has. So you've created this sense of well-being on the end that compels me to come back. Now, in this day and age, we have to find the way to get that sense of well-being on the front end before they even engage with the restaurant. And how do we do that? We're going to do that through marketing. Because if we don't do that through marketing, they may go a different direction with someone that looks a little bit more, looks like they have better hospitality and safety engaged together on their marketing. So make sure, this is what happens from time to time, I'm afraid. I still look at restaurant websites and they're static. They don't have any proof of life. And so what we find is that statistically speaking, people that don't see any change, consumers that don't see change on social media and don't see change on the website, assume that you're closed because everyone else has already changed all their presentations. So make sure you get that and get that done. It's super, super important, that proof of life piece. Social media, obviously very, very important. That's a no-brainer. Excuse me. And it's more important now than ever. 51% of people that use social media have their use is up during the pandemic. So it makes a big difference. So make sure people know you're open. Again, this idea of proof of life. Photographs of your staff wearing masks. Photographs of your dining room showing social distancing. Explaining to people how you're going to keep them safe while still giving them hospitality. Really, really important, especially now, knowing that we've got a little ways to go. Explaining mask policies, pickup policies, all those things that you're doing. Again, I know I've said it a couple of times, but proof of life on your social media and consistent use on your social media will make a difference. So we're kind of wrapping up here. I want to share with you one thing also that has to do with this idea of sanitation and hospitality. Because of the virus and because our restaurants have been stressed and strained, we've had to squeeze them. A lot of restaurants have been contracted down to as small as we can get them and still be efficient. We've seen smaller menus. We've seen smaller staffs. All those things that you're doing to make sure that you remain viable and alive and well. Now that we're a number of months into this, from time to time, there's the experience that I see of a restaurant owner operator or a team squeezing the restaurant just a little too tight. And when we do that, we run the potential of damaging morale and hospitality. And then there goes the bottom line. Squeeze your restaurant as tight as you can to get it to where you need to be to the best of your ability given COVID-19, and then stop. The only way you can increase that bottom line is to drive top line sales, alternative revenue streams, and really good hospitality. Don't over squeeze. Keep it alive, but drive those top line sales to ensure that we don't damage the customer experience. I want to finish up with a few different quotes. Danny Meyer, we all know Danny Meyer, one of the best restaurant operators in the nation. In a recent interview since the pandemic began, he said, "Why do we exist? We exist as safe places for people to restore themselves. This is our moment to fulfill that promise of hospitality." I think he couldn't be more right. Danny Meyer understands this relationship between safety and hospitality and being able to use a restaurant to the best of our ability as we did prior to the pandemic. And I saw Jim Sullivan, another great restaurant operator and great teacher. I saw him speak about 25 years ago. And he said this: if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. And that resonated with me. I always thought about that when I was going after a promotion or a raise, and I was chasing a bonus. It always reminded me, keep those disciplines that you always had, and you'll always get what you always got. Well, I've changed Mr. Sullivan's quote because I think this now makes more sense. You'll never get what you always got unless you start to do what you never did. Think about that. I know you've already changed and you've already modified. And you've done amazing things in terms of keeping the restaurant industry going and your individual enterprise going. We need to continue to do more. One eye on day to day, and one eye on the horizon. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I wish you nothing but safety and prosperity. Thanks.